Most people don't lose money because they're careless. They lose it because something felt free. You've probably done it. I've done it. We all have. You sign up for the credit card with the bonus points. You take the employer match but never check the fees. You refinance because the rate looks lower. You buy in bulk because it's cheaper per unit. You upgrade your phone because it comes free with the plan. And in the moment, it feels smart, responsible even. But years later, when you run the numbers quietly, when you really sit down and look at what your money could have become, you realize something uncomfortable. That free decision cost you more than you ever imagined, and not just thousands, potentially millions. Today, I want to talk about the free money mistake that is quietly costing people their financial future. Not because they're reckless, not because they don't work hard, but because psychologically, we're wired to overvalue what feels free and undervalue what compounds slowly in the background. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let's start by reframing something. Most people think the biggest money mistakes are dramatic. Day trading your savings, buying a car you can't afford, falling for a scam. Those are obvious. They make headlines. But the real damage usually comes from something much quieter. It comes from tiny decisions that look harmless, even intelligent. We're told to chase deals, capture bonuses, maximize rewards, get the employer match. Don't leave free money on the table. And on the surface, that advice isn't wrong. But here's what most people misunderstand. Free money isn't free if it changes your behavior. Free money isn't free if it locks you into mediocre decisions for decades. Free money isn't free if it distracts you from building something bigger. The mistake isn't taking advantages. The mistake is building your financial life around incentives instead of ownership. Let me explain what I mean. Imagine someone who contributes to their company retirement plan just enough to get the employer match. Let's say it's 4%. The company matches dollar for dollar. It feels amazing, right? That's 100% return instantly. So they stop there. They tell themselves they're being smart. They're capturing the match. They're not leaving free money behind. But what they don't realize is they've unconsciously anchored their saving behavior to the incentive, not to their actual long-term needs. The match became the ceiling instead of the floor. And over 30 years, that small psychological anchor can mean hundreds of thousands of dollars in difference. Not because the match was bad, but because it tricked them into thinking they were doing enough. This is how free money quietly shrinks ambition. There's something powerful in behavioral psychology called the zero price effect. When something costs nothing, we overreact. We feel an emotional surge. It feels like a win before we've even evaluated it rationally. You've seen this in stores. Add a free item to your cart and suddenly the entire purchase feels justified. The word free bypasses critical thinking. Now translate that into financial life. Cashback rewards, sign-up bonuses, tax refunds, company perks, government incentives. None of these are inherently bad. In fact, many are useful. But when your decisions revolve around chasing them, something subtle happens. You start optimizing for short-term wins instead of long-term ownership. And long-term ownership is where wealth is actually built. Let's talk about a more relatable example. Credit card rewards. You get 2% cash back, maybe 3% in certain categories, maybe travel points. It feels like you're winning the system. But here's the quiet question almost nobody asks. Did those rewards change how much you spent? Did they make you feel slightly more comfortable ordering takeout instead of cooking? Did they justify a slightly nicer hotel because I'll use my points? Did they normalize carrying a balance occasionally because I've earned so many rewards already? Even if you pay in full every month, studies show that people spend more when they use credit instead of cash. It's less painful. It feels abstract. That extra spending doesn't show up dramatically. It shows up in subtle lifestyle creep. An extra $300 a month here, an extra $500 there. Over 20 years, invested at 7%, $500 a month is roughly $260,000. That's not a small number, and that's just from small behavior shifts triggered by a reward. Now zoom out. Let's imagine someone who makes $80,000 a year at 30 years old. They steadily increase their income to $120,000 by 40. They feel comfortable. They take advantage of their 401k match. They get tax refunds every year. They collect rewards points. They refinance when rates drop. They feel financially literate. But they never really calculate what aggressive ownership could have looked like. If instead of stopping at the match, they saved 15% or 20% consistently. If instead of spending tax refunds, they invested them. If instead of upgrading lifestyle with every raise, they locked in expenses and invested the difference, the gap by 60 years old isn't marginal. It's the difference between having $1.2 million and $3 million. And here's the hard truth. Most people don't miss out because they couldn't afford to invest more. They miss out because the free incentives made them feel like they were already winning. This is the emotional trap. We confuse participation with progress. You contribute to retirement. You get a match. You feel accomplished. But retirement math doesn't care about feelings. It cares about percentages and time. Compound interest is powerful, but it's boring. It doesn't give you dopamine. It doesn't send you celebratory emails saying, "Congratulations, you just compounded $4.32 today." It's quiet. Free money, on the other hand, is loud. It's marketed. It's celebrated. It feels like a hack. And humans love hacks. We're wired to look for shortcuts. But wealth isn't built on shortcuts. It's built on consistency and ownership. Let me give you another angle. Employer stock purchase plans. Sometimes companies offer shares at a discount, 15% off market price. That sounds incredible. So employees load up. It feels like guaranteed profit. But now, a huge portion of their net worth is tied to one company. The same company that pays their salary. If the company struggles, they lose income and investments at the same time. Was the 15% discount worth the concentration risk? Maybe, but only if it fits into a broader strategy. The mistake happens when the discount becomes the strategy, when free money replaces thoughtful allocation. The same thing happens with tax refunds. A refund feels like a gift, like the government handed you free money, so you celebrate it, you spend it. Maybe a vacation, maybe something nice. But a refund is just your own money being returned. If you adjusted withholding and invested that monthly instead of waiting for a lump sum, you could capture compounding earlier. It's not dramatic, but over decades, timing matters. Even a few months of additional compounding every year adds up. Here's where this gets deeper. The real cost of the free money mistake isn't just financial. It's psychological. When you build your strategy around incentives, you stay reactive. You're always responding to offers, responding to bonuses, responding to perks. You never step back and ask the more powerful question: if no one offered me anything, what would I build? That question shifts you from consumer to owner, from reactive to intentional. Because true wealth isn't built by chasing incentives. It's built by deciding what percentage of your life you want to own. Ownership means you choose your savings rate based on your future freedom, not your employer's generosity. Ownership means you invest because you want optionality, not because someone dangled a match. Ownership means you keep lifestyle stable even when income grows. And here's the turning point. The moment you realize free money should accelerate your plan, not define it. That's the shift. Employer match? Great. That's extra fuel. Tax refund? Nice. More capital. Rewards points? Fine. Small bonus. But the core engine is your savings rate and your time horizon. Let's do simple math. If you invest $1,000 a month starting at 30, earning 7% annually, by 60, you have roughly $1.2 million. If you invest $2,000 a month instead, same timeline, same return, you're near $2.4 million. The difference wasn't a better stock pick. It wasn't a smarter credit card. It was behavior. And here's what most people miss. Doubling your savings rate often doesn't require doubling your income. It requires resisting lifestyle creep, which is hard because as income rises, expectations rise. Your social circle upgrades. Your neighborhood changes. Your definition of normal shifts. And free money plays into this. When you get a bonus, you celebrate. When you get a refund, you upgrade. When you earn rewards, you justify. But imagine flipping it. Imagine treating every piece of free money as a trigger to increase ownership. Bonus? Increase automatic investment. Raise? Keep expenses fixed for 1 year. Refund? Buy future freedom, not short-term pleasure. That's how small incentives turn into massive leverage. Let me slow down for a second. I'm not saying you should never enjoy your money. Life isn't a spreadsheet. You're allowed to travel, upgrade, celebrate. The point isn't restriction. It's awareness. It's understanding that the most expensive mistake isn't overspending once. It's underinvesting consistently. That's the quiet leak. You don't feel it month to month, but 25 years later, you feel it deeply. There's another version of the free money mistake that's even more subtle. Time. We treat time as free when we're young. We think we can invest later, save later, get serious later, because compound interest feels abstract. But every year you delay is not just 1 year lost. It's 30 years of compounding on that year's contribution. Start at 25 instead of 35, and even with smaller amounts, you often end up ahead. That's not motivational hype, it's math. And math doesn't care about how smart we feel chasing bonuses. It cares about when we started and how consistently we stayed invested. So what does this mean practically? It means you stop asking, what free money am I missing? And start asking, what ownership am I building? It means your savings rate becomes intentional, not incentive-driven. It means your investment strategy is diversified and boring, not reactive and promotional. It means you measure progress by net worth and optionality, not by how many perks you captured this quarter. There's a calm power in that. You stop chasing, you start building. And here's something I've noticed. People who build quietly often feel less anxious about money, because their system isn't dependent on offers. It's dependent on behavior. Behavior you control. You can't control markets. You can't control employers. You can't control tax policy, but you can control your savings rate. You can control your lifestyle baseline. You can control whether a raise upgrades your future or your furniture. And that control reduces anxiety. Not because you're guaranteed wealth, but because you're aligned. There's a big difference between feeling clever and being secure. Free money makes you feel clever. Ownership makes you secure. One is a short dopamine spike. The other is quiet confidence. And here's the emotional part that doesn't get talked about enough. When you reach your 50s or 60s and realize you could have invested more, that realization hurts.
Not because you were irresponsible, but because you were almost there.
You were participating, you were trying, but small psychological traps kept you from pushing further. The good news? You don't need to overhaul your life tomorrow. You don't need extreme frugality. You don't need to triple your income. You just need one shift. Let free money be extra, not essential. If your employer match disappeared tomorrow, would your savings rate collapse? If rewards programs ended, would your spending habits change? If bonuses stopped, would your investment plan stall? If the answer is yes, your system is incentive dependent. If the answer is no, you're building ownership. That's the difference between chasing and compounding. And compounding doesn't just apply to money. It applies to identity. When you see yourself as someone who invests first and spends what's left, that identity compounds. When you see yourself as someone who upgrades only after increasing investments, that compounds too. Over time, it becomes automatic. You stop negotiating with yourself every month. You build once, then automate. That's boring. But boring builds millionaires, not overnight, quietly, gradually, almost invisibly. Until one day you look at the numbers and realize the gap between you and your old self is massive. Not because you captured every free offer, but because you didn't let them distract you. So here's the reflection I want to leave you with. Think about the last financial decision you made because it felt like a deal. Now ask yourself, if there was no incentive attached, would I still have done it? If the answer is yes, great. If the answer is no, there's your signal. Deals should accelerate your plan, not create it. Free money should be fuel, not foundation, because the foundation of wealth is simple: consistent investing, time, and controlled lifestyle growth. That's it. It's not glamorous. It won't get you applause, but it will get you freedom. And freedom is the real return, not points, not perks, not refunds. Freedom to say no to work you don't enjoy. Freedom to help family without panic. Freedom to take time off without fear. Freedom to choose. That's what millions actually represent, not luxury. Optionality. And the free money mistake quietly steals optionality by keeping you focused on crumbs instead of compounding. But once you see it, you can change it. You don't need perfection. You don't need guilt. You just need awareness and a slightly higher standard for yourself. Instead of asking, what can I get for free? Start asking, what can I own fully? That question alone can change the trajectory of your financial life. Slowly, calmly, without drama. And that's the kind of change that actually lasts.